Maggie Collins was a seasoned truck driver who had roamed the highways of the American South for over 10 years. She was known for her knack for finding little-known shortcuts that saved time and fuel for the logistics company she worked for. But her trip through Black Hollow, a small village deep in the Arkansas National Forest, turned into an unforgettable nightmare. It all began on a drizzly afternoon when Maggie received an urgent delivery order for a customer in western Arkansas. Instead of taking the crowded main highway, she decided to try a shortcut a colleague had mentioned, a narrow, winding road cutting through dense forest, leading straight to Black Hollow, a village few dared to visit. The road started out normally, tall trees blocking the sunlight, casting eerie shadows. But the deeper Maggie drove, the stranger things became. Road signs disappeared, replaced by strange symbols crudely painted on trees and rocks. It felt as if someone was watching her every move. As her truck rolled past scattered houses along the road, Maggie shivered. They were all abandoned, windows shattered, wooden doors rotting and creaking in the wind. Weeds overgrew yards and paths. Some houses still bore faded signs warning, "No trespassing." Suddenly, rounding a sharp bend, Maggie spotted a figure standing at the roadside. It was a woman in a white nightgown, her long hair covering her face. She stood motionless, eyes vacant and staring right at Maggie. Slowing down, Maggie was about to stop and ask when the woman vanished like a ghost. Her heart pounding, Maggie tried to stay calm and kept driving. Soon, strange noises came from the truck. Soft knocks on the metal sides, whispers crackling over the CB radio. Turning on the radio, she heard only static mixed with eerie sounds, howling wind and faint laughter. Before she could react, the truck violently shook and stalled in the middle of the deserted road. Maggie tried to restart it but failed. Taking her flashlight and phone, she stepped out to find a signal. Night fell quickly and the mysterious sounds grew louder. Footsteps behind her, whispers echoing from dark shadows lurking in the woods. After walking for a while, Maggie found a large house at the end of the road, dim light flickering inside. She knocked, and a middle-aged man opened the door, his eyes cold and unreadable. He claimed to be the last survivor of Black Hollow and told her about a terrible tragedy years ago. The entire village was struck by a strange illness that caused people to die or vanish mysteriously. The man warned Maggie not to stay, for vengeful spirits still roamed, seeking to trap the living forever in darkness. But when Maggie returned to her truck, she saw a group of shadowy figures surrounding it, their eyes icy and full of hatred. She tried to escape, but every time she looked back, the ghosts drew closer. As she ran, Maggie's phone rang. It was a call from Arkansas police, reporting a missing driver near Black Hollow. Her voice trembling, she recounted everything, just as a cold hand grabbed her shoulder. The story ends with Maggie waking up on the highway, her truck parked safely at the roadside, with no trace of the village or the ghosts anywhere. On the driver's seat lay a small wrapped package. Inside was an old doll with button eyes and a chilling note, "Don't come back." Maggie thought the nightmare was over. After waking up on the highway with no sign of the cursed village, she convinced herself it had all been a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and stress. But the doll on her seat, the one with the cold button eyes, and the note were undeniable proof that something supernatural had followed her back. Days passed, but Maggie couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At night, she heard faint whispers just beyond her bedroom window, and shadows seemed to flicker at the edge of her vision. Her phone rang repeatedly, but when she answered, only static greeted her. Then one evening, a voice whispered through the line, "You left something behind." Unable to resist the pull of the mystery, Maggie decided she had to return to Black Hollow, not just to confront whatever haunted her, but to find out what had happened to the village and its people. She packed a small bag, took her flashlight and headed back into the woods, determined to face the darkness. As she approached the outskirts of the forest, the air grew thick and cold. The trees seemed to lean in closer, their branches like skeletal fingers blocking the fading light. The path to Black Hollow was overgrown, but Maggie pushed forward, guided only by the faint glow of her flashlight and the memory of the road. When she finally reached the village, it was worse than she remembered. The houses appeared even more decayed, and an unnatural silence hung over everything. No birds sang, no wind rustled the leaves. It was as if the village had been frozen in time, trapped in a nightmare. Suddenly, a chilling scream pierced the silence, echoing through the empty streets. Maggie's heart pounded as she followed the sound to the old church at the village center. The door was ajar, creaking on its hinges. Inside, the pews were overturned, and strange symbols were scrawled across the walls in what looked like dried blood. In the flickering light, Maggie saw movement, a shadow darting between the broken windows. She called out, but only silence answered. Then from the darkness, the woman in the white nightgown appeared again, her eyes now glowing faintly red. This time she spoke in a voice like the rustling of dead leaves. "You shouldn't have come back." Maggie's flashlight flickered and died. Panic surged through her as cold hands grabbed her from all sides, pulling her into the shadows. She struggled, but the darkness was suffocating, whispering secrets of the village's curse. A curse born from betrayal and bloodshed long ago, binding the souls of Black Hollow forever. Just as Maggie felt herself slipping away, a sudden burst of light shattered the gloom. The man from before appeared, holding an old lantern. "Fight it," he shouted. "Break the cycle." Summoning every ounce of strength, Maggie broke free and ran from the church, the spirits howling in anger behind her. She didn't stop until she reached her truck, heart racing, lungs burning. As she sped away from Black Hollow, the village seemed to dissolve into mist, the curse lifting with every mile. But Maggie knew deep down that some darkness never truly disappears, and that Black Hollow's secrets might one day call her back again. Maggie's heart still pounded as she drove away from Black Hollow, the village disappearing into the mist behind her. She thought the nightmare had ended when she escaped that cursed place, but the shadows clung to her like a second skin. Night after night, the same haunting visions invaded her dreams. The woman in the white dress, the silent village, the cold eyes watching from the darkness. Back in her apartment, Maggie tried to convince herself it was over. She locked the door, pulled the curtains tight, and turned on every light. But then, one evening as she was tidying up, she noticed the doll, the one with the button eyes, sitting on the windowsill. It wasn't there before. And now it seemed to be staring right at her. A chill ran down her spine as her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen. A message, no sender. "You haven't paid your debt." Her breath caught. The words echoed in her mind, a sinister reminder that Black Hollow's curse was far from broken. It was a bond, invisible, unyielding, linking her to the village's dark past. Determined to understand, Maggie plunged into research. She scoured old newspapers, library archives, and online forums. The story she uncovered was worse than she imagined. Decades ago, Black Hollow was the site of a brutal massacre. A mother dressed in white had lost her child to a cruel fate. Her spirit, filled with anguish and rage, was said to haunt the village, seeking justice and peace. Maggie knew what she had to do. Running away was no longer an option. She had to return, not as a victim but as a savior. That night, armed with candles, a worn prayer book, and trembling resolve, Maggie drove back to Black Hollow. The village was shrouded in fog, the silence oppressive. As she stepped out of the car, the air grew icy, her breath visible in the dim light. She found the old cemetery at the village center, graves cracked and overgrown with weeds. Kneeling before a crumbling tombstone, she whispered prayers, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. The wind howled, and a cold hand seemed to brush her cheek. Suddenly, the woman in white appeared before her, ethereal and glowing faintly. Her eyes, once fierce, now held a deep sorrow. Maggie reached out, her fingers trembling, and the ghost's hand brushed hers. In that moment, a surge of memories flooded Maggie's mind. The mother's pain, the injustice, the betrayal. Tears streamed down Maggie's face as she vowed to bring the truth to light. The spirit smiled, a fragile hope shimmering in her gaze. Then slowly she faded into the mist. Maggie stood alone, the village feeling lighter somehow, the curse lifted, or so she hoped. But as she looked back toward the road, a shadow flickered just beyond the tree line, watching silently. Back in her apartment, Maggie tried to shake the unease settling deep in her bones. The doll with button eyes sat motionless on the windowsill, but at night she swore she heard faint whispers coming from it. Her dreams turned darker. The same house from before, hidden deep in the forest, appeared again and again. This time the house was dilapidated, its windows shattered, and inside stood a massive mirror, cracked and spiderwebbed. Behind the broken glass, a figure lurked, a shadow with eyes that burned like embers. One night, Maggie awoke to the sound of shattering glass. Heart racing, she found her apartment in disarray. The doll was gone. In its place lay a shard of broken mirror, reflecting her terrified face. Desperate for answers, Maggie returned to the forest near Black Hollow. Guided by the visions, she stumbled through dense underbrush until she found the house from her dreams. The door creaked open as if inviting her in. Inside, the air was thick with decay and something else, a palpable darkness that seemed to swallow the light. The mirror stood ominously at the far end of the room, its surface fractured but still reflecting distorted images. As Maggie approached, the shadow from her dreams emerged from the mirror's depths. It was a twisted reflection of herself, a dark doppelganger with hollow eyes and a sinister grin. "You cannot run from what lives inside," it hissed, voice like a cold wind. Maggie's skin prickled with terror. The shadow stepped forward, reaching out with clawed hands. She stumbled back, but the room seemed to close in around her. Memories flashed before her eyes, moments of fear, guilt, and anger she had buried deep. The shadow fed on these emotions, growing stronger. Realizing this was no ordinary haunting, Maggie gathered her courage. She faced the mirror, speaking aloud the truths she had hidden even from herself. "I am not afraid of you," she declared. "You are part of me, but I will not let you control me." The shadow screamed, a sound that shattered glass and rattled bones. Light burst from Maggie's chest, spreading through the room like wildfire, burning away the darkness. The mirror exploded in a shower of glittering shards, and the shadow vanished into nothingness. Breathing heavily, Maggie collapsed to the floor. The house seemed to breathe with her, the oppressive weight lifting. She knew now that the true battle was not just against the spirits of Black Hollow, but against the darkness within herself. As dawn broke, Maggie stepped outside. The forest was quiet, peaceful for the first time. But deep in the shadows, a pair of eyes watched, patient, waiting for the next chapter to begin. Maggie stepped out of the old house deep in the forest, the dawn's light slowly filtering through the dense green canopy. The air was fresh, no longer heavy or chilling as before. She exhaled deeply, thinking the darkness had truly left her. But deep in her mind, Maggie knew her journey was far from over. She had faced the darkness within herself, but the darkness outside, from Black Hollow, still lingered, a threat unresolved. Back in the city, Maggie decided to dig deeper into the village's history. Through ancient documents, she uncovered a horrifying secret. The massacre wasn't just a single event, but the result of a dark ritual performed by an ancient cult to summon malevolent powers. The woman in the white dress was the cult's final victim, her spirit trapped, unable to find peace. Maggie felt herself drawn into a more dangerous spiral than ever before. To break the curse, she had to undo the original ritual, a ritual deeply rooted in the very soil of Black Hollow. Without hesitation, Maggie returned to Black Hollow for the last time. This time, she brought not only candles and prayer books but also holy crosses, holy water, and cleansing herbs to confront the evil. The village remained silent, abandoned houses standing like motionless ghosts in the mist. Maggie headed toward the village center, where an ancient tree stood, a massive trunk with roots plunging deep like a gate to hell. According to the documents, this was where the cult had performed the dark ritual. Maggie could feel the presence of an evil power enveloping the area. She lit candles around the tree's base, drew protective symbols with white chalk, and began chanting prayers from the ancient book. The wind howled and leaves rustled like the whispers of trapped souls. Suddenly, the ground beneath Maggie trembled violently. A hidden door opened, revealing a staircase leading underground. With no other choice, she descended. The underworld of Black Hollow. Below was a vast cavern, candlelight barely illuminating walls covered in strange symbols and dried blood. The air was icy cold, reeking of decay and mold. Maggie's footsteps echoed in the darkness. She sensed someone watching her, but when she turned, only thick shadows remained. Suddenly, a hoarse laugh echoed from deep within the cavern. Maggie saw a figure cloaked in black, face hidden in shadow. "Welcome back, Maggie," the cold voice said. "I am the one who cast this curse and you will never escape it." Maggie recognized the cult leader, the man who had performed the dark ritual and imprisoned the mother's spirit in the white dress. The confrontation began. The dark man raised his hand, summoning vicious spirits from the shadows. Maggie didn't hesitate, wielding her cross and holy water to fight back. The spirits charged, but the holy light and prayers made them vanish in waves. Maggie rushed toward her enemy, chanting spells with trembling lips. The dark man laughed cruelly, unleashing thick black energy that shook the cavern. Maggie dodged and suddenly threw the cross at him. A scream of agony filled the air as the darkness around him began to dissolve. Maggie continued her chants, the light growing stronger, engulfing the entire cavern. Finally, the dark man screamed in pain and vanished in a blaze of brilliant light. Silence returned. Maggie felt a warm energy spreading everywhere. From the shadows, the woman in the white dress appeared one last time, her eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you, Maggie," the spirit said softly. "Because of you we are free." She smiled and vanished in the light. Maggie climbed the stairs and stepped out of the cavern, feeling true peace for the first time in months. Back in the city, Maggie's life slowly returned to normal. But she never forgot what she had endured and knew darkness always lurked somewhere, waiting for a chance to return. She began writing her story, hoping anyone who heard it would be cautious and never awaken the ghosts of the past. One day while cleaning her home, Maggie saw the button-eyed doll that had long disappeared. But this time she smiled, knowing she had conquered the darkness. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the room, a new beginning free from ghosts and hauntings. The highway stretched endlessly through the night, a ribbon of asphalt swallowed by a thick, creeping fog. Marcus Thompson gripped the steering wheel of his 18-wheeler tighter than usual. The road was unfamiliar, twisting through the remote hills of the Appalachians, a shortcut he hadn't taken before. His usual route was closed due to construction, and the GPS was glitching, leaving him little choice. The hum of the engine and the tires on wet pavement were the only sounds in the cab, until the CB radio sparked to life with a burst of static. Marcus flicked the switch, expecting the usual chatter of passing truckers, but what came through was something else entirely. A voice, low and distorted, crackling through the interference. "Left rear, danger, blowout imminent." Marcus froze. The voice was faint, almost drowned in static, but the warning was clear. He glanced at the mirrors, heart pounding. The road behind was empty. No other trucks, no help nearby. He pressed the mic. "Say again? Who's this?" Only static answered. His eyes darted back to the tires visible in the mirror. Nothing seemed out of place. Yet an instinct buried deep inside screamed otherwise. He eased off the accelerator and slowly pulled onto a narrow shoulder just as the radio hissed again, more urgent this time. "Don't ignore it, left rear, now." Marcus jumped out, flashlight in hand, heart hammering. The beam caught the left rear tire. The rubber was shredded, the sidewall swollen like a balloon ready to explode. He barely had time to breathe before the tire gave a sickening pop, sending shards of rubber skittering across the asphalt. He stumbled back, adrenaline surging. That voice, whoever it was, had saved his life. Marcus sat back in his cab, hands trembling as he tried to steady his breath. The radio crackled again, but this time the voice was different, softer, almost mournful. "You're not alone. I'm still here." The words sent a chill down his spine. He knew that voice. It was the same one he'd heard years ago in stories told by veteran truckers. The ghostly signal from Thomas "Night Rider" Williams, a driver who vanished without a trace on this very road decades ago. Thomas had been infamous for his night runs, a legend among truckers for his skill and daring. But the last anyone heard, his rig had careened off the mountain road after a tire blew out. No body was ever found, only the charred remains of the truck. Marcus's mind raced. Was this some kind of warning from beyond? A restless spirit trapped in the radio waves, trying to protect those who dared to drive where he had died? Over the next few nights, Marcus's life became a waking nightmare. The voice returned, sometimes whispering warnings about his truck's brakes, other times cryptic messages about his own fate. One night, as he rested at a truck stop miles from Black Hollow, the radio burst to life in the dead of night. "Don't trust the road ahead. Shadows move, danger close." Outside, the fog thickened unnaturally, swallowing the parking lot in a ghostly haze. Marcus glimpsed figures lurking just beyond the headlights, shadowy forms that vanished when he blinked. His phone lost signal. The radio was the only link to the outside world, and the voice was his only guide. The voice didn't just warn about mechanical failures. It spoke to Marcus in moments of vulnerability, urging him to take care of himself. "You're back. It's breaking. Don't wait." Marcus had ignored the dull pain that gnawed at his spine for years. But the voice's warnings pushed him to see a doctor. The diagnosis was grim, a degenerative spinal condition that could end his driving career if untreated. The realization hit hard. The voice wasn't just a ghostly guardian for his truck, it was a protector for his life. One night, while navigating a particularly treacherous mountain pass, the radio crackled with a frantic warning. "Stop, don't go, they're coming." Marcus's headlights caught movement on the roadside, figures cloaked in black, faces hidden, standing motionless like statues. His heart hammered as the fog thickened, swallowing the road behind him. Suddenly the engine sputtered and died. The truck coasted to a halt in the middle of the road. Marcus fumbled with the ignition, panic rising. The radio voice returned, calm but urgent. "Light the fire, don't look back." Remembering an old trick from his grandfather, Marcus grabbed a flare from the dashboard and ignited it. The fiery glow pierced the fog, and the shadowy figures recoiled, vanishing into the mist. The engine roared back to life, and Marcus didn't hesitate. He floored the accelerator, racing down the mountain as the fog seemed to close behind him like a living thing. Marcus never fully understood what he had encountered: a ghost, a warning, or something darker. But the voice on the radio became his lifeline, a spectral guardian watching over him on the lonely roads where others had vanished. He knew the danger was never far, that the road itself seemed alive with restless spirits and unseen threats. But with every warning, every whispered message through the static, Marcus survived, a lone driver protected by a voice from beyond the grave. And every time the radio crackled, he held his breath, waiting to hear the voice again, ready to listen, ready to fight another night on the edge. Marcus's hands trembled on the wheel as he drove through the thick fog that seemed to swallow the world whole. The flare's glow had barely faded when the radio crackled again, the voice now urgent, almost desperate. "Don't stop, not here, keep moving." His heart pounded. The road ahead twisted sharply, disappearing into a tunnel of darkness between towering trees. Marcus's headlights barely penetrated the gloom. He gripped the wheel tighter, eyes darting to the mirrors, half expecting those shadowy figures to reappear. Then, without warning, a loud bang echoed from the trailer. The truck swayed violently as if it had hit something, or someone. Marcus slammed on the brakes, skidding to a halt. Sweat poured down his face. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped out, every nerve on edge. The beam swept over the asphalt. Nothing. No debris, no animals, no sign of impact. Yet the trailer's side bore a deep, jagged scratch, fresh and raw. The radio crackled again, the voice softer this time, almost a whisper. "They're watching, closer than you think." Marcus swallowed hard. Who were they? And why were they hunting him? The next day, Marcus stopped at a small diner in a town that seemed frozen in time. He needed answers, and maybe, just maybe, a break from the nightmare. Inside, the locals eyed him warily as he asked about the old highway, the disappearances, and the legend of Knight Rider Williams. An old man, his face weathered like leather, leaned over and whispered, "You're not the first to hear the voice. Thomas wasn't just a driver, he was cursed. Some say the road itself is alive, feeding on fear, trapping souls." Marcus felt a chill. Cursed? How do I get out of it? The man's eyes darkened. You don't. Not until you face what's waiting at Black Hollow. That night, Marcus decided to confront the source. He returned to the haunted stretch of road near Black Hollow, the place where Thomas had vanished. The fog was thick, the air heavy with silence. As he drove slowly, the radio crackled one last time. "Look behind you, it's time." Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. There, glowing faintly in the mist, was the silhouette of a truck, its headlights dim but unmistakably real. The ghostly rig followed him, matching every turn, every speed change. Panic surged through him, but he kept driving, heart racing. Suddenly the voice spoke again, clearer than ever. "Trust yourself, you're stronger than the fear." Taking a deep breath, Marcus pushed the accelerator, breaking through the fog like a burst of sunlight. The ghost truck faded, disappearing into the night. Marcus pulled off the road as dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight burning away the last traces of fog. He felt exhausted but alive, as if the voice had not only saved his life but freed him from the curse that had haunted the highway for decades. From that day on, Marcus never drove alone without his CB radio tuned in, listening for the faintest crackle, ready to heed the warnings of the unseen guardian who had become his protector in the darkest nights. Marcus couldn't forget the moment the ghost truck vanished into the thick fog. The dawn's first light filtered through the leaves, dispelling the heavy darkness of the previous night, but inside him lingered an indescribable chill. It felt as if he had just escaped a nightmare, yet also stepped through a gateway into another world, where the boundary between life and death was so thin it could easily be pierced. He knew he couldn't simply ignore what had happened. The voice on the radio was not just a wandering soul but a warning, a mission Marcus had to fulfill. He decided to return to Black Hollow to uncover the root of the curse that had turned that place into a living nightmare. The next day, Marcus went back to the small town near Black Hollow, where the locals still kept the terrifying stories of the cursed road tightly sealed. He met with Mrs. Evelyn, an elderly woman considered the keeper of the town's memories. She welcomed Marcus with wary eyes, but when she heard his story, she nodded as if she had been waiting for someone like him. "Thomas Knight Rider Williams was no ordinary driver," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "He was once the guardian of this road, a protector of the souls lost here. But one stormy night, he was trapped by a dark force, and his spirit became stuck between two worlds." Marcus listened, feeling the pain and despair in her words. "A dark force? Who do you mean?" Mrs. Evelyn sighed, her gaze distant. "An ancient power that feeds on souls who pass through. It thrives on fear and suffering. Thomas fought to keep it at bay, but in the end he was trapped too. Now his spirit tries to warn the living, to save them from the same fate." Marcus knew he couldn't run anymore. He prepared thoroughly, flashlight, communication devices, and a heart full of determination. That night, he drove once again into Black Hollow, where everything grew eerily silent. The fog was thicker than ever, the air icy cold, as if thousands of eyes were watching his every move. The radio suddenly crackled with the familiar voice, but this time it was not a warning, it was a message. "Do not be afraid. I am with you." Marcus slowed down, parking by the winding road. Stepping out, he felt a strange energy all around. Shadows began to emerge from the mist, moving slowly like bound ghosts. Suddenly, a tall figure appeared before him, Thomas, with sorrowful but determined eyes. "Marcus," Thomas said, his voice echoing from another world, "it's time to end this. The dark force grows stronger, it will consume the souls of all who travel this road unless someone stops it." Marcus's heart tightened. "What must I do?" Thomas extended his hand, giving Marcus an ancient silver ring inscribed with mysterious symbols. "This ring will help you hold back the darkness. But only if you dare face it in the very heart of Black Hollow." Marcus stepped deeper into the dense forest where no light could penetrate. Every step felt like sinking into endless darkness. The wind whispered curses. Suddenly, the darkness around him twisted into a monstrous form, grotesque and full of malice. "You cannot escape me," the creature's voice boomed like a hellish roar. Marcus clenched the ring tightly. He felt a strange power emanate from it, a brilliant silver light that pushed back the darkness. The monster howled, shrinking away from the light's strength. "This is your last chance," the creature shouted, lunging at Marcus. With no way back, Marcus stood firm, focusing all his will. He shouted, wielding the ring like a weapon, unleashing a blinding beam of light. The darkness shattered, screams echoed, then silence fell. As sunlight pierced through the canopy, Marcus found himself standing in a peaceful forest, free of fog and eerie shadows. The heavy weight on his shoulders lifted. Thomas appeared one last time, smiling gently. "Thank you, Marcus. My spirit is free now. This road will no longer be dangerous." Marcus nodded, filled with relief and hope. From that day forward, Marcus never heard the mysterious voice on the radio again. But he knew a part of Thomas would always accompany him, an invisible guardian on the long roads where others had vanished. He returned to a normal life but kept his heart alert, ready to face any darkness that might appear. And whenever he turned on his CB radio, Marcus held a silent belief that some spirits never leave the roads they traveled, protecting the living from unseen dangers. Lila Moreno had been driving trucks for over 10 years on some of the most dangerous and remote roads in the United States. She was well known among drivers not only for her solid skills but also for her unwavering rule: never pick up hitchhikers. She had heard countless chilling stories about unexpected passengers, wandering spirits on lonely roads, and she didn't want to become one of them. That night, as a blizzard swept through the Cascade Mountains, Lila was driving along a narrow, winding road blanketed in thick snow. The wind howled against the windshield, and the heavy snow reduced visibility to only a few meters. Sensing danger, Lila decided to pull over, switched on the hazard lights and folded her arms, waiting for the storm to pass. Through the swirling white snow, she saw a shadowy figure standing by the roadside. The woman wore a long silver-white coat, her long black hair dusted with snow, looking weak and shivering. Lila immediately recalled her rule but hesitated as the woman's eyes held a strange sadness and otherworldly aura, as if she didn't belong to this world. "Are you okay? This storm is dangerous," Lila called out, her voice carrying through the cold wind. The woman smiled softly, her voice a whisper like the breeze. "I just need a little help. Please, can you give me a ride for a while?" Lila hesitated, then opened the door and let the woman in on one condition: she must not touch anything inside the cabin. The moment the woman stepped inside, the air in the truck turned icy cold, different from the chill outside. Lila felt a bone-deep cold wave spreading around her, making her shiver. The woman introduced herself as Evelyn, but her eyes were unlike any human's, glowing an icy blue, deep and mysterious. Lila asked where Evelyn wanted to go, but she silently stared out the window without a word. As they drove, Lila began hearing strange whispering voices coming from the radio, even though it was off. The cabin lights flickered erratically, and the speedometer spun wildly as if possessed. Evelyn spoke of previous hitchhikers who had vanished without a trace on this road. She warned Lila that if she wasn't careful, she would fall into the deadly trap that had claimed those souls. Suddenly, Evelyn's hand touched the steering wheel, and the truck seemed seized by an invisible force, racing toward a sharp, dangerous curve. Lila struggled to regain control but felt as if a supernatural power was fighting her. In a split second, Lila slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded on the snow and stopped just inches from a steep drop. She looked back at Evelyn, but the woman had vanished. Only a faint mist and the howl of the wind remained. After that terrifying night, Lila couldn't shake the haunting feeling. She started researching the road she had traveled. Through conversations with locals and other drivers, she discovered that the road had been the site of many mysterious disappearances, especially during blizzards. According to legend, Evelyn had once been a young woman living in the mountains who disappeared during a fierce blizzard many years ago. Since then, her spirit had wandered the road, searching for someone to help set her free. Unable to forget Evelyn, Lila decided to return to that road once more, this time better prepared. She brought along a voice recorder, a powerful flashlight, and a silver bracelet given to her by an old local woman who said it could ward off evil spirits. As the blizzard rolled in again, Lila stopped at the same spot. Evelyn appeared before her once more, her face cold but her eyes still filled with deep sorrow. "Lila," Evelyn said softly but with authority, "this road is not just where I lost my life. Deep in the forest, a dark force waits for lost souls. If no one stops it, more people will disappear like I did. Lila sensed the sincerity and desperation in Evelyn's voice. She resolved not to let the story end with her. Following Evelyn into the snowy forest, where the white blanket covered everything and the wind howled through the trees, Lila felt dozens of shadowy figures darting just beyond the flashlight's beam, as if countless eyes were watching them. Suddenly, a powerful gust swept past, carrying anguished screams echoing in the cold air. Lila felt an invisible force trying to pull her toward a freezing abyss. She gripped the silver bracelet tightly, feeling warmth spread through her hand and push back the darkness. Evelyn whispered, "Hold on to your faith. Only the light can banish this darkness." Lila cried out and raised the bracelet high. A brilliant light radiated from it, scattering the shadows and silencing the screams. As dawn's first light filtered through the trees, Evelyn smiled one last time and vanished into the mist. Lila stood alone, feeling peace had returned. Lila Moreno thought everything had ended when the dawn chased away the gloomy night on Cascade Road. But she was wrong. 1 month after her confrontation with the darkness in the forest, Lila's life began to spiral into a terrifying nightmare unlike anything she had ever experienced. At first, it was just strange dreams. Lila found herself standing in a snowy forest, the wind whispering her name. Evelyn appeared, her icy blue eyes still deep but now filled with sadness and a plea for help. Each night, the dreams grew longer and more vivid, waking Lila in cold sweats. Not only in her dreams, Lila began sensing unusual cold drafts around her while driving, even on warm sunny days. The truck radio turned on by itself, emitting eerie whispering sounds that made no sense. The cabin lights flickered, and her phone lost signal unpredictably. One day, while stopping at a small gas station, Lila saw the silhouette of a woman in white standing far outside the window. She quickly turned away, but when she looked back, no one was there. The air was so cold she had to pull her jacket tighter around herself. The next day, Lila received a message on her phone from an unknown number. "They have not let go. Return there. Only true light can save them all." Lila knew this was no prank. She decided to contact the old woman in the village who had given her the silver bracelet. Miriam, a wise woman knowledgeable about supernatural phenomena. After hearing Lila's story, Miriam frowned. "Cascade Road is no ordinary path. There is an ancient force sealed there, a dark spirit bound for centuries. Evelyn is only a small part of the story. If this is not dealt with at its root, the darkness will spread, devouring all souls nearby." Determined, Lila set off once again for Cascade Road, this time not just to save Evelyn but to face the ancient darkness itself. Miriam handed her a small wooden box containing ancient items. A candle made from wild beeswax, a silver bell, and a bottle of special herbal oil. "These are the only things that can help you keep the light in the darkness," she said. As Lila drove into the forest, the sky was gray and heavy, cold wind biting through the dry branches. It felt like hundreds of invisible eyes were watching her every step. The radio whispered again, but this time the voice was clearer. "Come. Come." Lila stopped near a deep part of the forest where sunlight could barely penetrate the thick canopy. She lit the beeswax candle, ringing the silver bell repeatedly, the sound echoing eerily through the woods. Suddenly, a pitch-black figure emerged from the shadows, tall and faceless. It was the ancient spirit Miriam had warned about. It exhaled like the howling wind, eyes glowing red like burning coals. "You should not have come here," the shadow said in a deep, hoarse voice. "Your light only angers me. I will consume everything." Lila trembled but forced herself to stay calm. She raised the bottle of herbal oil and sprinkled some into the air. The scent spread, soothing the terrible cold. "I am not afraid of you," Lila said. "I have come to end the darkness, to free the trapped souls." The shadow lunged forward, and the air darkened. The wind howled stronger as if trying to blow everything away. Lila lit the candle, its flickering light fighting against the thick darkness. The silver bell rang continuously, like an ancient spell. She felt the power from the silver bracelet on her wrist, its light merging with the candle's glow to form a shining shield. The shadow roared, sending waves of dark energy trying to break the light barrier. Lila shouted, focusing all her mental strength into the bracelet. The light exploded brilliantly, scattering the darkness and silencing the screams echoing through the forest. As the light faded, the shadow vanished, leaving behind an eerie calm. Lila collapsed, exhausted but filled with hope. At that moment, a thin mist appeared, and Evelyn materialized before Lila, her eyes gentle and full of gratitude. "Thank you," Evelyn said. "The darkness has been sealed again. The trapped souls will be free. But this road still needs someone like you to protect it." Lila smiled, knowing her journey was far from over. She had become the keeper of light on the cold roads, the guardian of lost souls against the endless darkness. Ethan Carter was an experienced truck driver, known for navigating the most treacherous mountain roads in the Cascade region. Not only was he famous for his expert driving skills, but also for his calm demeanor and ability to handle dangerous situations. But this time Ethan's mission was far from ordinary. One foggy morning, Ethan received a secret call from an anonymous man, assigning him a special task: transport a sealed container from a small coastal port to a secret location deep within the Cascade Forest. No paperwork, no explanations, only one strict instruction: never open the container under any circumstances. Though somewhat suspicious, Ethan accepted the job because of the generous pay. He knew some jobs required no questions, only completion. Strange noises and suspicious signs. The container was tightly secured on his truck, but from the first kilometers Ethan sensed something was off. At night, during stops in deserted areas, he heard strange noises coming from inside the container. At first, faint moans, then gradually turning into heavy breaths and tapping sounds, like someone trying to escape. Ethan shook the container lightly but found nothing unusual. He told himself it might be the wind or wild animals nearby. Still, a part of him remained uneasy. Suspicious signs. Strange vehicles appeared behind him for hours, headlights flashing in his rearview mirror as if tracking his every move. His phone occasionally lost signal, then received mysterious calls with no one answering when he picked up. Near the deep forest area, with night fully fallen, Ethan stopped by the roadside to inspect the container. Suddenly his phone rang. An unknown number appeared on the screen. He answered to hear a trembling voice. "Ethan, if you're listening, stop immediately. Don't open the container. They don't want you to know the truth." The weak voice sent chills down Ethan's spine. He asked, "Who is this? Who are you?" The voice cut him off. "No time. They're coming. The light will save you." Then the call abruptly ended. Ethan looked around but saw no one. A deep sense of dread settled in his chest. Biometric monitoring system. Determined, Ethan shone his flashlight into the container's crevices. Suddenly, he discovered a small device attached inside the container door. An advanced biometric monitoring system unlike anything he had ever seen. Carefully opening the device, he saw a tiny screen displaying vital signs: heartbeat, body temperature, and strange brainwave signals. What shocked Ethan most was the blurry image of a suspended creature inside the container, frozen in a state of suspended animation. The creature was not entirely human, with pale skin and large, deep black eyes. It twitched slightly as if trying to transmit a message through brainwaves. While Ethan was focused on the device, footsteps echoed outside the container. A group of masked individuals dressed in black emerged from the shadows, approaching swiftly. "Return the container," one spoke coldly. "You have no idea what you're messing with." Ethan quickly closed the device and stepped back toward his truck. He knew that if they took the container, the secret would be lost forever. With no other choice, Ethan started the engine and sped off like a storm, trying to escape the pursuers. The truck's headlights pierced the darkness, the engine roaring through the forest. While fleeing, Ethan recalled the voice in the call: "The light will save you." He decided to use a high-powered flashlight and a silver amulet given to him by an old wise woman he once met, a talisman rumored to repel darkness and evil spirits. When he shone the flashlight on the container, a powerful light burst forth, startling the creature inside to awaken and emit a resonant, powerful sound. The creature opened its eyes, looking out as if pleading for help. The silver amulet began glowing intensely, forming a protective barrier around the container, preventing the pursuers from getting close. Ethan realized this was no ordinary cargo transport. He had to find a way to rescue the mysterious creature and uncover the truth behind the container. He contacted Maya Collins, a woman he'd heard about who had faced supernatural forces along Cascade Road. They arranged to meet at an abandoned cabin in the forest to plan. There, Maya and Ethan examined the biometric device, analyzed the data, and tried to understand the creature inside. They discovered that the creature was an extraterrestrial being captured and studied illegally by a secret organization seeking to exploit its supernatural powers. The masked pursuers were relentless, continuing their hunt for Ethan and Maya. In the dark forest, a deadly battle erupted where light and darkness clashed fiercely. Maya wielded her knowledge of light magic and the silver amulet, while Ethan drove the truck with expert skill, attacking and defending the container. After hours of fighting, they finally defeated the pursuers and freed the alien creature. Grateful, the creature bestowed upon them powers to continue protecting Cascade Road from other dark forces. Ethan and Maya stood by the roadside, watching the dawn break over the mountain peaks. They knew the war against darkness was far from over, but at least they had secured a piece of light for the world. The first rays of dawn barely pierced the thick canopy of the Cascade Forest as Ethan Carter and Maya Collins stood beside the truck, their breaths visible in the cold morning air. The alien creature they had just freed lay hidden in the back of the container, weak but alive. The forest, however, felt alive too, watching, waiting. For a few hours, silence reigned. Ethan kept the engine running, eyes scanning the dark woods. Maya clutched the silver amulet tightly, whispering incantations to keep the protective light strong. The alien's breathing was shallow but steady. Suddenly, the radio crackled with static, then a voice whispered, "You cannot run from the darkness. It is part of this land." The hairs on Ethan's neck stood up. "Who's there?" he shouted into the void, but only the wind answered. Maya's face paled. "That voice, it's not human. It's the forest itself or something worse." As if on cue, the trees seemed to shift, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers reaching out. Shadows elongated unnaturally, creeping toward the truck. Ethan slammed the door shut and locked it, but the darkness pressed harder. From the depths of the forest came a low, guttural growl, followed by whispers in a language neither Ethan nor Maya could understand, an ancient tongue soaked in malice. The alien stirred, emitting a faint blue glow that pulsed in rhythm with the silver amulet around Maya's neck. The glow pushed back the shadows slightly, but the darkness was relentless. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of the clearing, a tall, gaunt man draped in tattered black robes, his eyes glowing red like embers. His mouth twisted into a cruel smile. "I am Malakar," he hissed, voice like dry leaves scraping stone. "Guardian of the shadow realm tied to this forest. You have disturbed the balance." Ethan gripped the steering wheel, heart pounding. "We're just trying to survive. Let us pass." Malakar laughed, a sound that seemed to suck the warmth from the air. "Pass? No one passes here without paying the price." With a wave of his hand, the shadows surged forward, coiling around the truck like serpents. Maya stepped forward, chanting louder, the amulet glowing fiercely. Ethan grabbed a flare gun from the dashboard and fired into the thickest cluster of shadows. The flare exploded in a burst of blinding light, forcing the shadows to recoil. Malakar screamed in rage, raising his hands to summon a vortex of black mist swirling with glowing red eyes. The alien in the container suddenly emitted a piercing shriek, its blue glow intensifying until the container itself seemed to vibrate. The creature's energy clashed with Malakar's darkness, creating a shockwave that rocked the forest. But Malakar was cunning. He vanished into the mist, only to reappear behind Ethan's truck. Before Ethan could react, a cold hand grabbed his shoulder, freezing him in place. Maya shouted, "Ethan," and rushed to his side, swinging the amulet like a weapon. The silver light burned Malakar's hand, forcing him to release Ethan. Ethan stumbled but quickly recovered. "We can't keep this up forever," he said grimly. Malakar's voice echoed all around them. "The forest will consume you. The creature belongs to me." As the battle raged, Maya's eyes caught a faint glow beneath the forest floor. A series of ancient runes etched into the roots of the trees, pulsing with dark energy. She realized the forest was alive because of a curse placed centuries ago by an ancient cult that worshipped shadow spirits. The alien creature was trapped here because its power was the key to breaking the curse, or unleashing it fully. Maya knew what they had to do: find the source of the curse and destroy it. Descent into the Forbidden Grove. Ethan, Maya, and the alien creature, now barely conscious but still glowing faintly, made their way deeper into the forest. The trees grew denser, the air colder, and the whispers louder. They reached a clearing dominated by a massive, gnarled tree with roots like veins sprawling across the ground. At its base was a stone altar covered in bloodstains and dark symbols. Malakar appeared again, blocking their path. "You cannot undo what was done. The shadows are eternal." Maya raised the amulet. "Not if we fight with light." The alien creature suddenly broke free from Ethan's hold, floating toward the altar. Its glow grew brighter, illuminating the dark runes. Malakar unleashed a torrent of shadow energy, but Ethan fired flare after flare, lighting the clearing in bursts of fire and light. Maya began chanting an ancient prayer, her voice steady despite the fear. The amulet shone like a beacon. The alien touched the altar, and a shockwave of energy burst forth, shattering the dark runes. The ground trembled as shadows screamed and began to dissipate. Malakar screamed in fury, his form unraveling like smoke in the wind. As the first sunlight broke through the canopy, the forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The oppressive darkness lifted, replaced by a serene calm. The alien creature, now fully awake, looked at Ethan and Maya with gratitude. "You have freed me and this land." Ethan smiled tiredly. "We just did what was right." Maya nodded. "But the forest will always remember. We must remain vigilant." Back at the cabin, Ethan and Maya prepared for what might come next. The alien's presence had changed everything. They had glimpsed forces beyond human understanding, forces that could return in darker forms. The silver amulet glowed softly on Maya's neck, a reminder that the battle between light and shadow was never truly over. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying a warning and a promise: the shadows would rise again.